Hello, hello. Just coming on live. Just gonna check to make sure that we are showing up in the group. So give me a second. Hopefully, some people are hopping on. If you're here live, please say hi in the comments. And if you're going to catch this on replay, we'll have it here in the group so you can come back and watch the replay anytime. After the session, we will actually post it also in our guides. So if you're having, if the feed gets too busy and you can't see it anymore, please go into guides and grab it there. Just a little note. So Cindy and I actually were trying to come in live together today, using Zoom as the streaming platform, and had a lot of troubles, hence why we are an hour late on coming live today. Had a lot of troubles trying to figure out a few of the steps, and then at the very end discovered it's because I don't have Zoom professional business or whatever, because in our business with Cindy and I, we actually utilize Google Workspace, and because we utilize Google Workspace, we are able to use the professional version of the Google Meet. So that's how we communicate with our clients and do all the other things. But the one feature that it doesn't have that Zoom does is the live streaming into Facebook. So good to know going forward that we'll need to either have the professional mode of Zoom to be able to do it, or use another service, which we do have a few other options that we will try to figure out. But without further ado, today is going to be just a quick impromptu training for you. And I haven't scripted anything out. I haven't, really thought about it too much. But what I want to show you is our CAOS method. So that is the client attraction operating system that we use to bring in daily leads. And then from there, what do we do with those leads, right? Because we can bring all the leads in that we want, but if we don't have a follow-up system, if we don't have something to intentionally put them through, those leads just get lost and we're leaving money on the table. So today I'm just going to quickly go over what that looks like. I'm going to do a very high-level overview. This is exactly what we're going to be teaching in our upcoming sprint, the Client Attraction 5-Day Sprint. So if this interests you and this looks appealing and you want to know more, then definitely let us know in the comments. Just put sprint in the comments and we will get a hold of you and see if it's a right fit for you and then get you registered. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm actually going to use my whiteboard today. Whoop, a little loud. And I'm just going to move my camera down a little bit so you can see it better. This fancy little whiteboard is actually my kids' whiteboard. As you can see, the pretty little stickers, right? But I get to utilize it for business too, right? Gotta use what we got. Okay, so first thing is first is how do we attract the right people, right? What do we do? How are they coming in? And then, of course, after, how do we move them? So the first thing, I'm just going to put a little box here. And so first thing, that's not very bright. Let me use a different color. Hold on a second. Let's try this again. Erase that. Okay, so first things first is that we are going to attract our clients. So I'm just going to put attract, right? Don't mind the messy printing, but attract our clients through content. Content. Now, where are we putting this content, right? We're going to be putting this content on our personal profile. We're going to be putting this content in Facebook groups, in our own Facebook group. So this can be, like I said, it can be multiple things. So personal profile, Facebook group, and this means yours, okay? This is going to be super messy, guys. Facebook group and yours, and then other people's, right? Because when we use other people's, we're really leveraging their community and we're sharing, right? And so we're not going in to steal people's clients. We're going into groups that are aligned with us, but also slightly different, right? So we're not taking away from the group owners' possibilities for themselves, right? So we're going to go into the right aligned groups and we're going to post content that really attracts our clients. So what does that look like? So it really looks like a lot of storytelling, to be honest, right? You're going to use your real life experiences in your personal life, in your business life, and you're going to relate them to a problem, a direct problem that your ideal client has, right? So you want to make sure that you have a really strong hook, right? So we want a hook. This will really pull people in. If you don't have a strong hook, then you will have a hard time having people stop the scroll. And then on top of that, you also want to have a personal picture. A personal picture. No AI images, no Canva images. You want a real picture because the algorithm really favors a real picture over anything that's manufactured. So you want, first off, you want the hook, and then you want to have a story that connects problem with something relatable. Like I said, super messy. Story that connects the problem with something relatable, okay? This is super important. This will really allow your ideal clients to come in and see themselves in your messaging, right? This is all part of messaging. How are we advertising or promoting ourselves, our services, in a way that doesn't feel salesy, but in a way that's relatable and people can really see themselves in this content, right? They are looking at it and going, that is me. She is speaking my language. Was she in my head? Those are the kind of reactions that we want because that is going to invite people to engage on your content. Now, what do we do once someone has engaged in our content, right? So, okay, they've engaged, they've either liked or they commented, right, on your post. So this is the next thing, right? They've engaged, they liked, they commented. What do we do with that? Why is that useful, right? Well, it's only useful if you have a follow-up system, okay? If you don't have a follow-up system, then this gets really muddy and mucky and you don't know exactly where you are with the person, where you're taking them to. So that's why we want to build a very strategic and intentional flow that people can go through. And that is our CAOS method. So once they engage, what we want to do is we want to then take them over to, first off, actually, let's go here. First off, we want to engage back on the post, right? So we're going to engage on the post, right? Make a comment. And then from there, we are going to go over to our DMs. And we're going to say to them, we're going to say, hey, thanks for the love on my content, right? Or on my post. I usually like to really specify what post it is exactly because, you know, we're just like everyone else and we, you know, communicate and engage on many different posts. So they might not remember the exact post that they engaged on. So if you bring that back to their attention, then it's like, oh, right. Sometimes people even ask, what group did you find me in, right? So it's really important to kind of understand those little touch points first. Okay, where did they engage? What group was that in? Okay, I'll keep that in mind when I'm messaging them back, right? So we can just bring it back to relevance, why you're DMing them. Otherwise, it can feel spammy, right? So, but when they understand that they actually engaged on your content, they're more willing to sit there and have a conversation with you, right? Because your content is resonating with them. So bring it into the DMs. And this is where a lot of people get confused and get lost, is moving from the comment to the DMs. Now, we have to remember that we just want to be human, right? We just want to be human and have a human conversation. We're moving the conversation along supernaturally, right? And then we're going to be intentional with the next steps. So comment back if they commented, right? Comment back and say, make it relatable to what they commented. If you can, even end it with another question, because the algorithm really loves it when you not only comment, but you comment and keep the conversation going, okay? Furthermore, the algorithm loves it when you then follow up with a DM. Trust me, the algorithm knows everything that you're doing, and every time you do a different action, it is indicating to the algorithm that you are in business, that you are communicating with people, and that is what Facebook is about. It's about relationships and communication, right? So we really want to utilize that so then we can boost our own content, right? So this is how you do it. So then you go into the DMs and you start, okay, what do I say? What do I say, right? Let's make this super, super simple. First off, again, be human. Be human. I can't say that enough. Remember what you would do if you were just meeting someone, off of the street. How would you talk to them, right? Would you automatically pitch them, like the first sentence out of your mouth? Would you say, hey, I have this? No, of course not. You would communicate with them. You might say, hey, I checked out your profile. Looks like we have this, this, and this in common. Or you can say, hey, I love your vibe, right? I checked out your profile picture and it's awesome. You just try to move the conversation forward in a natural way, but then it also has to relate back to what your next step is, right? So we want to show them that we are looking at their stuff, that we are interested in them as much as they are interested in us, right? And not necessarily to sell them something. We're just building relationships at this stage, right? Building relationships, seeing how they form, and seeing how we can help them with the next step in their business, right? Whether that be free content or a paid program. But a lot of times they need more nurturing. So just doing the content and the DMs doesn't work. Just doing content doesn't work, right? I mean, you will get a certain percentage that really resonates and they've been watching you for a long time, and so that might convert. But the ideal time of them interacting with you and your content is really around 7 hours, right? And we want as many touch points in there as possible so we are top of mind. You have to remember, on Facebook, it is busy, right? It is noisy, and there is 100 million other people doing the exact same thing as you. So why should they pay attention to your content, right? And the only way to get them to really understand that is by being intentional with the content that you put in front of them. We're no longer just relying on the algorithm, because a very small percentage of your audience, of your community, actually will see every post they won't ever see every post, but a very small percentage of people actually even see your posts through their feeds, right? If they haven't engaged with you yet, if you haven't engaged on their content yet, you're not really at the stage where you're going to start seeing either their content or they're going to see your content in the feed. So we need to warm up the algorithm to be able to tell Facebook, hey, this is my ideal person, right? I think they might be interested in something that I am sharing, okay? So from here, after you have this human conversation, hey, Joe, I love your energy. Thank you so much again for engaging on my content. What was it about that post that really hit home for you, or that really landed, right? Something along those lines. If they made more of an encouraging comment, you can also say something along the lines of, hey, thank you so much for the love on my last post. Curious, was that, just in support, or did this really land for you, right? So then you can really gauge right off the bat, why did they engage on this content, okay? So once they engage on the content, and you do this DM, the next DM that we have is going to be to invite them into our group, our community, right? Our community where we can really leverage our own content and intentionally put it in front of the right faces, okay? So you're gonna write something along the lines of, I'm not sure if this is for you, ... right? I'm not sure if this is for you, but since you commented on my content, I thought it might interest you that I have a Facebook community named blah 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 blah, right? For blah 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 blah. Insert the person it's for. You really want to make sure you're calling out the right ideal client so they know if they want to try out your community or not. What you do, what kind of tactics or things that do you actually go over in the group, and what would they learn, right? How is it going to benefit them? Why should they care about your community, right? So you want to really just lay that out for them so they can clearly see whether this is or is not for them, right? And it's up to them to make that choice. And then you're going to end it with, would you like me to send the link? You're not going to send the link in that message, right? Because you don't have permission yet, right? You don't know if it's for them. And if you send the link right away, it's pushy. It feels pushy, right? It feels salesy. But if they say, oh yeah, I am interested, I'd love the link, then you go ahead and then send the link, right? So then you do message to, send link. Now, this is great, right? We have talked to them a few times. We've got them now into our space, right? Our personal party, right? Now, what do we do from there? Do we just let them drop off and just be part of the group? Or do we use intentional actions to move them forward in the pipeline, right? And I know that sounds really cold saying pipeline, but that is what we're doing, right? Now, this pipeline doesn't necessarily mean that you are trying to sell to every one of those people. No. What we're doing is we're gaining people in our pipeline, and we're trying to figure out through conversation in the DMs, through showing our content, if we have something that will help them, right? So we're going to offer them some really awesome trainings or freebies as soon as they come in. So as soon as they come in, you want to send them another DM. Okay? We're going to send them another DM. If you can read that scribble. So we're going to send them another DM and say, hey, I just welcomed or accepted you into my Facebook group. Thank you so much for joining, right? And then you can say something along the lines of, I love gifting all new members such and such training. Would you like the link? Again, we're asking permission before we send the link, right? Because we want to make sure that this is actually something that they want. And if they say no, if you have a backup, you can always say, hey, that might not have interested you, but does this interest you? Now, if they still say no, that is okay, right? Don't press them, don't do anything. Let's just move along and ask them some more questions, right? And they, at this point, they should have gone through your Facebook questions, and those need to be primed to really identify your ideal clients, right? So you should be asking them what kind of stage they're in the business, and give them multiple choices to pick where they're at. If they want free content, free trainings, then to enter their email address. So we're building our email list at the exact same time, right? And then we want to know if they're interested in what would be the next step with us, right? So we're again attracting them, we're talking to them, we're sending them to the DMs. Now they're in our group. Okay, they either do or don't want the trainings that we had to offer. Great, fine, whatever it is, right? The next step would be, did they answer yes to the question that talks about your client attraction event, right? Or client activation event. Would they like to do that? So what are client activation events? They are 5-day events, like challenges, sprints, whatever you want to call them, right? And where you do for free and they come in and they see your best stuff, right? What are you known for? What is the main thing that you're teaching? So you don't need to teach them everything that you do, obviously, but what is the main thing that you teach that your ideal clients really, really need? What is that pain, right? And that's what you want to do. You want to make this client activation event on a real struggle point, a real pain point for them, something that these people are wanting and needing, right? And so how do you even understand what your ideal clients would want or need? You can do polls, you can really do research and ask people what their struggles are with people that are already in your community, right? You just advertise it as I'm just doing marketing research, right? Because you are at that point, if you don't know exactly what the major pain point is for your ICA, then how are you going to create trainings for them, right? So if you don't have that info already, let's go out and do market research and ask some questions to your ideal clients and see what they come back with, and then zero in on that for your client activation event, okay? So now, okay, we've had them in DMs again, right? But how can we move them to the next step? So we're basically just going to invite them, say, hey, have you heard? Or you can say, hey, I noticed that you answered yes to knowing when my next client activation event is. Can I send you the details? If they say yes, right, you send over the details and you make your way from there. So this is super important because you're going to find out right away that whether they're in that spot right now, or maybe they just need a little more time to kind of lurk and do a looky-loo in your community, and then after a little more time, they could be ready. So either way, if they say yes, great, send them the information. If they say not right now, don't put them aside and think that, oh, they're not my ideal client, they must not like what I want, right? Or like what I have, rather. Don't do that, because that is quickly assuming what they want. You don't really have enough knowledge yet to say that they're a disqualified ideal client, right? And that they just want some value from the group, which is totally okay too, right? We want to have value. One thing we have to remember is, and I'm going to do this so you can see it a little bit better, is that 15% of our audience is ready to purchase right now. Okay, 15%. And then there's 85% that need that 7 hours of nurturing before they're ready to convert. So having the event, so the client attraction event down here, right? I'm just going to go CA. Having this really helps this category, right? The 85% that often get missed. People feel like, oh, they didn't want it, I'm going to go, and they move on too quickly. When in reality is you just need more data. They need more data, right? They need to know a little bit more about you. They need to know a little bit more about what you do, how you do it. So they're in our group to kind of like try on our coaching, right? Try on our services. So we really have to show them exactly that in our contents, in our written posts, in our lives, in our client activation events. That is the purpose, right? We're going to get them some more information. They can really try on our training and see if our personalities are a right fit. And let me tell you, they're not the only ones that are doing this. You're doing it too. Are they someone that I want to work with? Right? Because there's a lot of people out there that you wouldn't feel, even though they're your ICA, you wouldn't want them as a client for many different reasons, right? And that is our prerogative as business owners. So we just want to make sure that they are either we're both identifying with each other, right? They're saying, oh, I love the way she teaches, totally makes sense, I want to move forward. And we're doing the same thing, going, love her personality, love the effort that she really wants to put in here, and this would be a perfect client for me, right? So we're identifying that in here. And then, of course, during the client activation event, what are we doing? We're giving them our best stuff, like I mentioned before, right? We are not holding back. We are not just selling the whole time, right? Obviously, we are going to mention our programs. That is the point, and that's how we use organic marketing to really catch our ideal clients, right? So we're going to do that, but we don't want to do it in a way that is just like selling and they feel like they're being pitched the whole time. You want them to leave that event feeling like, I got a ton of value from that event. What else could they do with me, right? Because of course we're only solving one small problem. Well, we're solving it well for them, so they really get that value, but there's always that next step. What, first off, okay, I've learned this. How do I now apply it to myself, right? How do I really make sure that this system works consistently and smoothly? So those are the things that you that you usually need to really implement what you're learning, right? There's a lot of people that are great self-learners, and if you're one of them, that's awesome, so they can do that. But then there's other people that really need that extra push. They need the accountability, they need the guidance on how to execute, and that's where your ICA really shines, and they'll say, hey, I need it, I need help, right? If you do your job right in this sequence, then those right fit clients are going to hold up their hand, okay? So that is really a very basic way of showing you how we funnel people through our system. Now, there are a lot of other methods that we use to attract our ideal clients. This is just one of them, right? When we get into this section, how do we bring people in? There's many different methods of bringing them in, right? So I just gave you 3: your personal profile, your personal Facebook community, and other people's Facebook communities. So leveraging their audiences. Anyways, I hope that this was super helpful. And if it was, please comment down below that this really helped. And if you want to learn even more detail, what kind of post am I going to put in these communities, right? How am I going to move people forward from the comments to the DMs? If that feels uncertain to you, if it feels still kind of icky, right? Then our sprint is for you, right? I want you to write sprint down below, and we will get you that information, because we're going to show you this entire system and how to utilize it in your particular business. Okay, so if you want to learn more, drop sprint down below. It starts on January 26th, so it's a couple of weeks away still. We have lots of time to get you in and get you all registered and sorted out. So yeah, drop sprint below, and I will see you, actually Cindy and I will see you next Wednesday. Thanks guys, talk soon.